cool. And I'm like, that guy's a dirtbag. So, actually, there's a lot of people that are dirtbag. Like, it's like the whole nation.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Pointless Discourse with myself, Hoppocalypse, and Itisdpayne.
Hello.
What is our fact this week?
Well, the fact is more of a question.
Okay.
Why were there only 2 seasons? Once again, a question, like, I guess it does fit because we're on the season finale, but still, since there's 40 facts and 40 episodes, it was like, why is this not, like, at the end?
It's also not a fact. I mean, I guess it's a fact, but, like, you could easily go, oh, there's 2 seasons of this show before you even start it on anything.
Yeah, but why? But anyway.
Seuss question mark t-shirt appears.
Yeah. In an article you can find on Forbes' website, Alex said, it's meant to be an exploration of the experience of summer, and in a larger sense, a story about childhood itself. The fact that childhood ends are exactly what makes it so precious, and that's why you should cherish it while it lasts. From what I heard, like, Disney, like, after they saw the, like, huge success, was just like,
Give me more.
yeah, like, give us more. And he's like, no.
Good
It's
on
like,
him for standing down.
Yeah. And it's just, it's like he had to do so much, like, to actually get it to work. Mm-hmm. I did want to say, though, I forgot to mention this and it was pre-bant, but it is, it won't take too long from our thing. But yeah, for people that are listening to this, if you're listening to it when it comes out or later, it is, I always get the letters mixed up. Is it AAPI? Is that what it is?
Yes. Asian American Pacific Islander Heritage Month.
Yes. So
other countries will do API, just so it's like they can also do things for
so
things.
Hop and I, we read a bunch. We're that kind of nerd. Okay, so for people that don't know, Hop is really good. Like, when there's one of these months going on, she's reading, like, books written by people in that author.
I do have my list. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead. Share your list. Because I have a list, too.
I don't know if you saw, there is a booktuber, or book YouTuber, Read with Cindy, and they host an Asian readathon. I know I tried to participate last year. I don't know if I participated the year before. But on Storygraph, if you look at my profile on Storygraph, Itisdpayne,
I will right now.
You can see I have a 2023 Asian Readathon challenges. So there are 5 prompts. Read a book written by an Asian author. Read a book featuring a friendship between at least 2 Asian characters. Read a book written by an Asian author and or featuring an Asian character that shows them going on an adventure. Read a book written by an Asian author and or featuring an Asian character that is focused on identity and self-discovery. And lastly, read a book featuring an Asian character who is either a hot mess, famous, or eccentric. So for me to fill out those prompts, theoretically I could read 4 books and fill out all 4, right? As long as there's an Asian author to overlap. But I do have a book Instagram. So I'm checking that picture. So the book written by an Asian author, I'm reading After Parties. I don't want to butcher any names, but I believe that's a Cambodian author, but I unfortunately think he passed away before the publication of his book or shortly after it was published. But that's a set of short stories about, I believe, being refugees in America coming from Cambodia. Read a book featuring an Asian character who is either a hot mess, famous, or eccentric. I'm reading Diary of a Void, that I believe is a Japanese author, to which you get a peek in a Japanese culture around women and pregnancy, because the girl's like, I don't want to work anymore. I'm going to tell them I'm pregnant. And everyone's like, oh, yes, we're going to accommodate. We're going to make sure you're comfortable. We're going to make sure the baby comes in safe. And she's like, but I'm not pregnant, in her head, in her narrative.
That was the wrong time to take a drink.
So she's like, how do I keep doing this? Do I keep up the lie? Do I quit? Do I, all that stuff. I'm not 100% sure which direction that's going to go, but I assume it's a hot mess.
I wonder
why. Read a book featuring a friendship between at least two Asian characters. I'm reading Babel by R.F. Kuang. She's a Chinese author. And
such a good book. I read it.
I'm like 200 pages in, and I was like, oh, I'm so far in. And then I look at the bulk of I have a physical copy, and I looked at where it actually is. I was like, oh, I'm not very far at all.
Yeah. I listened to the audio, and I'm like, I have no reference for page number.
Yeah. Like, I think technically I'm like 35% through the book. Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow is what I'm reading for Read a Book, focus on identity and self-discovery. I believe that author is half Korean, and that one is about I know John Green, that author, recommended it a lot when he had read it, but it's about like video game culture and a lot of relationships that aren't romantic. They're all like friendship-based relationships, and then figuring yourself out amongst all of that. I forget if the character in that is a game developer or if games are what connects everybody in the story. And then my book about a character going on an adventure, The 7 Moons of Mali Almeida. Maybe I'm pronouncing that right. And I believe the author of that is Sri Lankan. And I think that one is a mix of folklore and looking into stuff. I read the back of the book in the store and I went, yoink! I can double check the synopsis.
Your list is a lot longer than mine, because mine is just... So, one book I want to read that comes out this month, and Hop and I have talked about it a bunch. Well, more of like, we want to read this book, but it's not out yet. By Kuang, R.F. Kuang, is Yellowface. That's supposed to come out this month at some point. I was on her Twitter to see when it's come out. I want to say like 23rd.
Ooh, it's coming out soon. Oh, before I get sidetracked, so the 7 Moons book that I mentioned... the main character was a war photographer, gambler, and closet queen, has woken up dead in what seems like a celestial visa office. His dismembered body is sinking in the serene Byra Lake, and he has no idea who killed him. And then it's going through, he has 7 moons to figure out who did it, and also to contact the people he loves.
7 Moons, that's what it's called.
Yeah, 7 Moons.
I looked it up. On Barnes & Nobles, this book comes out on the 16th.
A lot closer than you thought.
Yeah. So I don't know where the 23rd came from. So yeah. Guys, if it seems like we're excited to talk about books, yes. We have joked around about doing another podcast, which I don't know if that will ever happen or not, but of doing a book club
type podcast. I sent you the picture in case you were curious about the 7 Moons book.
Well, I did have to go and buy more credits on Audible because it's just easier for me to like read, because I was sitting there. Okay, so this is what really kicked it off, is like I was sitting there and I'm like, I am not enjoying these free books. I know why they're free now. Like I was reading Moby Dick, and like I can respect where it came from. It's just like at this moment, I'm like, I am not into this book. And then
it's funny. So Strider loves Moby Dick, but he was like, I think you'll like it, but you can skip a bunch of chapters because he also used it in a way to teach people about whaling. And he was like, you can skip all the whale description chapters. And I was like, I
didn't even get to the whaling section. He's not even on the boat. Like there are things that I thought was interesting. Like for me, for people who, if this is your first episode or not, we'll get to Gravity Falls eventually. I used to be a pastor, and there's like this whole chapter where they go into this guy who used to be a whaler turned into a pastor, and I'm like, and like it gives this whole sermon, which I'm like, that's interesting. That's kind of the way he taught it is not the way they tell people to preach now. Because he's like, this whole thing, because it's an audiobook, so they were giving a voice, and he's just like, it's telling the story of Jonah, and it's like, it's all from the perspective of the sailors, because they're like, they knew there was something wrong, and he was doing all this, and he was running from the law, and so they were looking at bounty boards, and I'm just like, where'd all this come from? It's interesting. Like, I know it's going to keep like a certain audience held, but I'm like, it's but the thing was like his whole sermon was that, and then it's just like, and then Jonah turned his back on the Lord, and it's like, you can never run from your, and I'm like, I don't even remember what it was, but I'm just like, okay. But like, I also like, there's different sections. I'm just like, I could understand like people that aren't looking at it at the time that it was written, that they could have a problem with some of the way they describe people, and it's a lot of language that there's certain parts where that like it wouldn't be okay to use now.
Yeah, I mean, there's context when you read classics,
Yes.
like, but it was just crazy because I read. So to prepare for my D&D campaign, we were doing more of like a gothic fiction kind of thing. So like Frankenstein, I'll always love an excuse to reread Frankenstein. But then when it came to like classic body horror in the genres, I was like, all right, let me read Island of Dr. Moreau. It's so bad.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's not even like in my head. I'm like, okay, it's of the times, but then it just feels so much worser. So much more worse because the contemporaries had like, you know, like they had anti-Semitic thoughts and things like that based on the author. But no, just Island of Dr. Moreau. They're like, oh, his background was in like biology at the time, and they believed in, I forget what it's called, when you touch the head and they say your head shape determines your personality. Phrenology, I think. And they're like, he was a big proponent for that, so that's why he thought different races were different. And I'm like, it's so racist though. Like, there's not even like a stereotype. Like, he's like, oh, this man, I thought he must have been from the weirdest islands in Africa I've never visited. And then, like, a couple chapters later, he's like, turns out he's half boar, half wolf, half man. I was like, oh my god. You can't tell me suddenly you're like, oh, I guess he does have hoofs for hands. How did you not notice? Why did you immediately go, racist?
Wah, wah.
So that was hard for me to get through. It had very interesting descriptions and ambiance, but then he'd be like, but he looks kind of like this race. I'm like, no, don't stop. Shh. You had something going and you ruined it.
How dare. But man, we're not talking about classics. So anyway, all that for the context of the reason why I bought my Audible credits, because I was like, you know what, I'm gonna and then like after I started it, I'm like, I don't know why I was making a big deal. I already read a bunch of like Asian authors anyway. So I'm just like, I don't know why I'm making a big deal, but whatever. I bought 2 books, and well, if I go through them as quick as I'm going through this first one, I might have to buy it. Well, I'm already going to buy another one. I'm going to buy Yellowface when that comes out. But anyway, so this book, I heard about it on TikTok. It just randomly came out, and it's like the author, she was talking about it. It's called Iron Widow. I don't know how to pronounce her last name.
Fantasy book?
It's science fiction.
Oh, is it YA? Because I think I might have seen the
Yes.
cover. Yeah.
Yes,
okay.
it's a young adult novel. I didn't realize it was a young adult novel, but it's really good, and I can understand why everyone likes reading young adult novels, because I'm just like,
That's how I felt. So for the trans rights readathon, I read Hell Followed With Us, and they're like, it's YA, and I was like,
that's on my list.
yeah, I was like, I don't really read YA, and then I read Hell Followed With Us, and I was like, it's so gory, it's so bad, there's so many feelings.
I'm like, no wonder they're all messed up.
But then Strider reminded me, he's like, YA is for like 14 to like 19, depending on like the author's like viewpoint. I was like, you're right. There was a lot of stuff, but it was like fade to black. Like it wasn't not implied that people were doing things together. It was all just fade to black.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's, I'm forgetting. I totally blanked on which I think it's pretty much a sci-fi retelling of Empress Wu, or not Wu. I gotta look it up now. It's it's pretty much the like the Chinese empress. Oh, I was right. Empress Wu. I don't know how to pronounce. I have a hard time reading the English when it just puts it out there and not like how it's supposed to be phonetically read. But yeah, it's like a mech retelling, and like all the Chinese deities are like mechs, and it's I don't know. I'm like, I already like mechs and all this other stuff, but Yeah, I'm realizing, because this is the second book, like, I don't know if you read The Poppy War or not.
Not yet. I do like Kwong's writing, so I may get into that one when I find time.
It is a very different main character. It's really funny comparing Robin Swift with I totally blanked on.
Yeah, I saw somebody else on like Instagram saying that one of their favorite Morley Gray characters is Rin.
She's
and
great.
And I do love Morley Gray.
Yes. But it's just like while reading Iron Widow, and like it's like now that I've read a little bit of the history, and like both the author for R.F. Kwong, and I feel so bad because I don't know how to pronounce her name, but it's Zhao. I think it's like Zhao is her last name, but it's the author for Iron Widow. Like their main characters are women, and they're very angry. Like I'm like looking at the Chinese history that they're pulling out. I'm like, I can understand a little bit more now why they are so angry. But it's just like I don't know. It's really interesting because it's like the main character for Iron Widow is very much just like, I want to get revenge on this person that, like, it says in like the first like second chapter of like, I want to kill this dude because he killed my sister, and like my parents don't care because they just didn't get money from it. And so like in short, like it's kind of playing off of like the ancient Chinese where like these like warlords and stuff would have like 300 concubines. And it's like the way she wrote it in there is like they need all those concubines because for the mechs it takes 2 pilots, and when it does it, the mechs can transform into different forms, but when they do, if like their like chi isn't equal, normally the women who have like weaker chi are absorbed, and like their brains and like spirit and everything are burnt up and absorbed by the man. And the reason why this character is like so like the main character is that she has an abnormally huge spirit, like they call it spirit pressure, but like chi value, and she's just like, everyone's like, we don't know what to do with you. And so but yeah, it's but like she's like, first it's her sister, and then it's like, well, now I'm mad at every male pilot because they are murdering girls just to go and fight this war. And it's and then it's just like, as it keeps going, it's just like, I'm like, she's so angry, it's awesome. And then the other book I'm reading, which after I finished Babel, it was like constantly, not Babel, sorry, the Poppy War trilogy, it was constantly being recommended. And so I bought Jade City by Fonda Lee. I have no clue what this book is about, except it kept getting recommended. A lot.
Yeah. I'm surprised you weren't recommended, or didn't see also recommended to you. I know a lot of people like She Who Became the Sun, I think it's called. I believe that's a fantasy one by an Asian author. I could be mistaken. Let me double check. She
Who Became... Oh, I had it, and then it went away. Yeah.
I love the cover for it.
This is a good cover. I'll just put it on the wish list.
Yeah, it says Mulan meets the Song of Achilles. Oh my god, I love the Song of Achilles. That's a good book, too.
Yeah, so I want to, like, read the original Mulan poem and stuff. I don't know. I'm realizing, like, it... I know... depending who I talk to, because they'll be like, I realize like lately I've been dipping into like Chinese culture a lot more than just food, and like kind of history and like their writings and stuff. And it's like, I know if I take that to some people at work, they're like, oh, you're being brainwashed. I'm like, no, it's called being informed, you idiot.
Yeah, it's I mean, like, I really liked doing the Trans Rights Readathon because it's voices I've never read perspective of. Mm-hmm. And while I don't necessarily have any of the same kind of feelings towards my self-identity, it's kind of, it helps you go, oh, I don't see things this way, but it helps to see how they view, you know, the complicatedness that is gender and identity.
Yeah, like, I'm not going to claim that I fully understand why China acts the way it does, but I have a slightly more understanding after reading that book of their history. Like, it was a short book. It's, if anyone's interested in Chinese history, I gotta reopen my Audible app so that way I can say the correct name. But it was really good. It's The Shortest History of China by Linda Jaivin, Jaivin, and it goes from like their like creation of the world all the way up to modern day. And it's like, and it's, I don't know how long the book is. I listened to the audiobook. I think it's less than 10 hours, which means I think 10 hours would equal out about like 200 pages, right around there. I could be wrong.
Depending on the way it's printed, yeah.
Yes.
Because I think the physical print of Babel is 586 pages, and the audiobook is like 21 hours.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, but yeah, anyway, it's like reading that is like it gave me a greater appreciation for the Poppy War and Babel, of just like, because it's like, it makes sense why China is acting the way they do, because it's like, between World War II, World War I, World War II, like, they were a powerhouse in like the 1600s, and then all of a sudden dropped off the face of the earth because of like England drugging up like their citizens with opium.
Colonizers.
And then it's like England's like, maybe we shouldn't be doing this. And then Japan's like, well, if you're not gonna have it. And like, oh man. It's real fun how everyone forgives a certain nation, and then you read history and it's like, that was a lot of war crimes we just overlooked. And you're just like, anime?
No, it's not. So in my mind, it's always not to like
music.
not to downplay
Sorry.
everything that happens in other countries, but to me it feels like, you know, like when siblings fight and you're like, oh, you kicked me in the shin. It's like, you punched me in the face and gave me a black eye. So that's how I see it, where it's like, they're like, anything you say about us, you literally nuked us. So
yeah. Yeah, there's a TikTok I saw where the guy's like, where it's like America's like, yo, Japan, what are you doing all that? And it's like, do you want to do this? And it just like pulls up like a little sign of like Hiroshima, and they're just like, the U.S. like, and like goes away and just like, nothing to see here.
History is complicated, but we should learn about it and learn about all the different voices. Like, what was it? I remember the reason I wanted to read Babel, but it's a big book, was that there was a reviewer that was like, as a white person, this makes me uncomfortable. I was like, I want to read it. Give me the book. And then all the comments that they ended up having to ultimately deleting the post, everyone was like, so then you should self-reflect, because I was a white person and read this book. And then there were memes online that was like, I'm white, but I'm not offended at talking about racism, white.
I don't follow those accounts, so I didn't see that. I was just like, oh, sweet, R.F. Kuang's reading a book, and I'm like, cool. And I'm like, that guy's a dirtbag. So, actually, there's a lot of people that are dirtbag. Like, it's like the whole nation.
Anyway,
I don't want to spoil anything, but it's like, I don't know how far you.
I just finished the section where he's starting his third year.
Okay.
So
yeah, it goes past.
Yeah,
Sorry,
he hasn't heard from his contact in a little bit because of the accident, and now he's I also like the description of being in school, because it is kind of funny, because I also was like, I remember the first year of my college experience, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna learn so much stuff, it's gonna be great. My second year, I was like, I'm so tired, but I'm so busy, it's still great. And then my third year, I was like, I'm still doing this. It's the same kind of dynamic even for them. Even though they're in the most prestigious school, they're also like, yeah, okay, I get it. Okay, guys.
Please. I like how they're like, each teacher gives us like 10 hours of homework, and I only got like 3.
Yeah, what was it? They're I think they said they're at the point that each professor wants a 5-page essay for each of their classes every week. And I was like, thank God I wasn't that. I just had projects that lasted me 4 months at a time.
Yeah. But guys, this is why we do a pre-show banter, because now it's almost halfway through the episode for normal, so this might be a little longer.
Yes, we'll see what we can squeeze in, or we'll try and speed this one.
I don't think we can speed.
No, we can't really speed run this one. But I was gonna say, comment or leave a review and saying just start the book podcast already if you want us to
yeah, if you
do
guys
that.
If you guys like the pre-show bant, let us know. We I don't know.
We have talked about if we ever do have a Patreon, then we would give access to people, start recording us just rambling about the state of the world and our current
way
hobbies.
For Dpayne to get canceled. Well, no, I'm not going to lie. There are some things I probably say that are problematic, but then Hop calls me out and I'm like, oh, didn't even know. Okay. So, but yeah, I guess I should roll a die. So, that's a D12. Hold on. Where's my D20s?
You could roll a D12 if you don't want to describe this episode, but look away.
I'm
For
not
video
looking.
viewers, I am going to roll a dice on my digital phone app.
I have a feeling unless you roll terribly, you are going to be talking about this one. Because I rolled a 4.
10.
Yep. I didn't realize you were holding your phone. I'm just like looking down. I'm like...
Oh, I thought you were doing the say your number before revealing your roll thing,
well,
like you said.
It was like... it was a while later when I realized, oh, wait, I did this last time. So yeah, go ahead. As we said, you were gonna be the one. Well, we did the bant, so now you're fully awake and ready to talk about this app.
I'm all warmed up. All right, so basically, this is a direct continuation of the previous episode. We haven't had a lot of part 2s in season 1, have we?
This is the first. This is the only part 2.
Oh, for some reason I thought there was one other one.
I believe, at least if it is, I think there's a lot of episodes that take, that's why it always has the series continuity at the end, because there's a lot of stuff that
Reference in between.
Yeah, reference, and it's just it shows the timeline, but this is the one that's
an exact
minutes
timeline
after.
wise, yeah. So yes, so we open up with the reminder that Gravity Falls has been taken from the family by Gideon. And
the whole town?
Sorry. The mystery
Guys,
shack.
the whole town. I didn't know they owned it.
Essentially, it's his goal in the end life. But yeah, so Dipper has a nightmare about the whole, pretty much what happened last episode. And he wakes up in a sweat and goes, guys, I just had the worst dream that Gideon sold the mystery shack. And that we had to move in with Seuss's grandma. And he looks around and Seuss is on the couch with him going, nah, not a dream, dude. And Dipper screams and everybody wakes up.
I scream too. I'm like, if I was a 12-year-old and then there's an adult man just in his underwear.
Not a dream, dude.
Not a dream. And I'm like, oh man, you're right, it's a nightmare.
And then Seuss's grandmother wakes up and goes, shh, por favor. She's so sweet. I love her. And Dipper apologizes. And Mabel does...
vacuum the floors now.
Mabel is like, she's old lady soft. I love her, and squishes her cheeks. And Stan says to Mabel to stop being creepy about it. And then we get the news cut on the TV where they explain that with Gideon having now taken ownership of the Mystery Shack, he has an announcement for everybody. But then they show a picture of Stan and saying that they've stolen it from Stan, and it's him in a devil costume with fire surrounding him. And Stan's like, that's taken out of context. And I was like, I can't think of a context that you should have that picture taken in.
Halloween.
Why is everything on fire around him?
He's extra.
But Gideon offers to everybody that he's going to give away pins for whoever comes in for his live announcement for his plans for the Mystery Shack. And Mabel is still excitedly saying that she's going to save the family with a grappling hook. And Dipper is like, no offense. You've never done any good with that grappling hook. And Mabel decides to do a jelly grab to show it off. And for some reason, next to the grandmother, there's this largest jar of a glass jar of jelly that I've ever seen. And Mabel shoots it right in the glass and it explodes everywhere. And she takes out a vacuum and goes, I vacuum the walls now.
I vacuum walls now.
And then Seuss is excited because he has people living with him. He's like, you know what? It's fine. Why don't we play race cars? It'd be a lot more fun if we had batteries, but we can use our imagination. And Stan's like, we need the shack back.
Well, that's when
Seuss
he spits,
also, he spits out, what, like cereal or something?
Yeah, it looks like Fruit Loops, essentially.
Yeah, and he goes, hey, should I eat that? Just kidding. I was going to eat it anyway. And Stan's like, we need the shack.
Don't blame him.
To which we actually end up at the ceremony to what Gideon has set up, and everyone's exclaiming how much they love Gideon. Lazy Susan's like, he figured out what was in my secret ingredient in my coffee omelets. And it's like, I wonder what that is. To be determined. Toby determined is like, he knows about my secret disgusting birthmark. Sorry, I like the flashback of that. Manly Dan is screaming about how much he loves him, and Sheriff Blubs and Deputy Durlin are getting like chokeholded, and
Grandma, is that you?
and then they show the gang coming in disguises, and Mabel is very excited about her fake mustache, even though she has all her hair out. And then Seuss still has his question mark shirt and has a not Seuss hat. And it's like, guys, don't tell anybody. I'm not Seuss. And it's like, guys.
It's a D&D level of disguise.
So Gideon announces his plans. He rips off a tarp off of a little miniature and shows that he wants to make a Gideon theme park. And that the mascot is going to be Gideon Jr. And they show Waddles dressed up as little Gideon. And Gideon's like, boom, he's a pig. And Mabel absolutely loses her mind, and rightfully so. And she's like, you monster. And they have to hold her back. And Stan's like, all right. And they all pull off their disguises and start to terrorize and like demolish all of the stuff on the stage. And Stan's like, he broke onto the property and he stole it. And they're like, arrest them, officers. And Gideon's like, but you gave me the deed, when it's still signed as Stanford Pines on the deed. And the officers were like, proof enough for me.
Yeah. I don't have anything to say about that. I was sitting there like this past week since we recorded the last episode. I'm like, I know it's a children's cartoon, but I'm 100% sure that's not how you gain property by just like, the deed's mine. I'm like, I'm pretty sure you have to like
have it in your
sign
name.
Yeah. It's like, if anything, well, I'm getting ahead of myself.
So then Gideon plays like the cute kid thing and goes, you know what, just get off my property now that they've said it's mine, and slaps one of his Gideon pins on a Grunkle Stan. And Grunkle Stan starts to get upset, but then his hearing aid acts up like it does the feedback noise. And they get carried off by the guards, to which the guards are the same guards we've seen all over the show. The guy that has the neck tattoo.
And was it Tats and...
I forget the other guy's name.
I'll look him up.
Okay.
I clicked guard and it brought me to Tats. Which is the guy that has head and chin tattooed on his head and chin. Let's see. It says 2. Will this bring me to the other one? Oh, unnamed bouncer. So he's just the dude.
He doesn't even have a name. He's just reoccurring.
Yeah.
But yeah, so then they're stuck outside the chain link fence after being kicked out. And Wendy shows up and says that if they can't get the mystery shack, she'll be sent off to work somewhere up north for her, I think, cousin's logging company. To which Dipper is like, no, you can't go, Wendy. And Seuss is like, yeah, because Dipper has a huge crush on eucalyptus trees. Saved it. And Dipper's just staring angrily. But then Robbie shows up from the bushes with a radio in hand. He's like, please take me back, Wendy. Did you see my texts? Do I need to send more texts? Wendy's like, you never saw me. Just
I like,
bikes away.
I like his line. He's like, my arms are too skinny to keep holding this boombox forever. That's a reference to a movie, and I can't remember what it is.
It's John Cusack holding the radio up.
Yeah.
It's an older rom-com, I believe.
Yeah.
Like, maybe 80s?
Yeah,
Say Anything. I think it's Say Anything.
I'll check. I'm looking through, like, the... whatever it's called. The
Illusions, or...
the trivia to see if they have it, or...
If you click on the Illusions link, they tend to put references in there, but it won't take you directly to the episode. You'll have to scroll to it.
Okay, I'll see if I can find Illusions. Oh, there it is. Season 1. Well, unfortunately, I can just scroll too far. Scroll back up. I was like, what? Did it just skip the final episode? Yep, Say Anything.
Hey, I only know that because I listened to a band. So when I would Google the band as a kid to look it up, I would get John Cusack holding a boombox. Okay, so
Side note, there's a ton of thing for Dreamscapers. Like,
I wouldn't be surprised.
It's like triple the size of most of these things.
But yeah, so we end up back into Seuss's grandmother's home, and she's worried because she says she can't feed such a big family. And Mabel has her giant suitcase of sweaters. Like, where will I put all my sweaters? It is massive. It's bigger than the two of them combined.
Mm-hmm.
And you have Sue saying that Grunkle Stan's going to figure it out. He always does. But Stan's on the phone, clearly with the twins' parents, lying about, like, oh yeah, we're in a hotel, as you look and see that, like, the place isn't very clean. And he's like, yeah, we have plenty of food. And they opens the fridge and there's no food. And he's like, look, if I thought I couldn't take care of them anymore because of the state I'm in, I would send them back right away. And Mabel asks if they can order pizza from the other room. And Stan, you realize he has no money now. And then we have the inside of the Mystery Shack with Gideon and his dad setting things up. And poor Waddles is, like, hanging out. And Dipper blows the whistle and shouts at him to hide in the corner. And his dad comes up and has that stinking clown painting that that Stan stole from the beginning, and was like, I thought you would get your nose out of the books. You got everything you wanted. Shouldn't you be celebrating? And he's like, Gideon goes in his whole tirade about how important the book is and, you know, how much power it wields. And also during this, we see a large construction of a metal Gideon being made outside right next to the Mystery Shack. And
by one,
we don't see him yet.
Oh, yeah, we just see the welding.
Yeah, happening. But yeah, so Gideon explains that once you bring the journals together, you unleash an unimaginable power, and he has two, and he wants to find one. And that he believes it's...
He has journal number 2.
Yes.
Like, the way that was phrased, it could have sounded like he has 2 journals.
He has journal number 2.
Mm-hmm.
All throughout the show, we've seen that Dipper has number 3, and Gideon is looking for number 1. So Gideon, by building the amusement park, believes he can dig up the whole property because he thinks this is the last place he hasn't had a chance to look for the book. But yeah, as it fades away, then we see Old Man McGucket working on it. Oh, good old McGucket. So then back...
The best morally ambiguous character.
Not even gray, just nobody can tell his alignment.
He's what I want to be in every tabletop role-playing game.
Yeah, so then we go back to the family, and Mabel and Seuss are shouting, "Go red car! Go other red car!" And Dipper's like, "What? This would be much more fun with batteries." And then they kind of push one of the cars to make it go on the track. And Stan admits that he bought bus tickets for the kids to head home, and that, you know, it seems like their summer is over, and everyone's upset by it. Seuss especially. He's like, "No, look at their faces. You can't do this to them." Mm-hmm. And Seuss is like, "Be cuter, Mabel. Your summer depends on it." But Stan admits he finally lost. He can't, you know, be able to take care of the kids, and it's better if they go back to their parents. and Seuss runs after him. So Dipper and Mabel shout, you know what? We really need to stop Gideon. So in unison, they're like, we'll save it using, and Dipper shouts journal, and Mabel shouts grappling. Hey, journal, yay. The journal.
Just let her hook. Just let her do it.
But yeah, and then we see the guards walking again, guarding the premises, and Dipper and Mabel are like, we just need to get past. And Mabel shoots the grappling hook, hits a tree branch, which ricochets to Dipper and hits him in the face. Again, poor Dipper just getting proved again and again that the grappling hook hasn't helped with anything. But Mabel won't admit that it's useless. And then Dipper is scrolling through his journal pages. He's like, let's see, should I call the bar fairy? What about the squash with a human face and emotions? Which comes up a lot whenever they open the journal. Mm-hmm. And Dipper stops him and asks, what's this? And it's weird on our watch through because it's obvious what it is on a second watch through, mm-hmm. but it looks like part of a puzzle essentially.
Yeah.
And Dipper's like, I don't know. It says that it can build some kind of strange weapon, and Mabel goes, boring.
Yeah, there's one thing I wanted to jump in real quick where it was mm-hmm. just like when Dipper's like, can we use this bar fairy? And like Mabel is constantly like, yeah, and he's like, no. Just like,
no.
Whatever she gets excited for is like, yeah, that's not working.
So then Dipper goes, oh, we need an army to get through the guards, and you know what we can use? The gnomes. And Mabel's like, I don't want to do that. And then they end up and Dipper ends up finding their hiding spot, and they find one of the gnomes named Jeff in a pit of like a bathtub full of squirrels acting as a jacuzzi. So he's holding one squirrel to scrub himself, and the rest are running in circles around him. He's like, this is totally normal. This is normal.
The squirrels even look surprised, like, oh.
We got caught. Yeah, he's like, look who came crawling back. Somebody changed their mind about marrying me, huh, Mabel? And Mabel's like, ew, no. And he's like, if we're not going to get married, I'm not going to help you. And then they offer up Gideon. They're like, her name's Gideon. She has lovely white hair. She could be the queen of the gnomes. He's like, oh, an older woman. Shmebulak, get me the cologne. And Shmebulak. Yes. And he's like, is Shmebulak all you can say?
Shmebulak.
So they agree on it. And then, so while the twins are trying to gather their own army to get past the guards and onto the premises, Stan, being cheap, is like, get me the oldest or the most expired apple cider you've got, because no alcohol, it's a children's show. He just it's really expired fruit juice. But then you find Seuss is working in the kitchen in the diner, and Stan is taken aback, and Seuss is like, yeah, I've had to take a bunch of part-time jobs. Right now I'm a part-time cook. Hey, is the kitchen supposed to be that much on fire? And turns around and there's just flames everywhere. And you have Seuss running back and forth with a fire extinguisher in the background as Stan is sighing about how he's a man-child. And Seuss comes back and is like, I'm here for you. And Stan's like, the entire lower half of your body is in flames.
There.
And then Gideon is digging with a shovel, trying to figure out where this journal could be hidden. And Bud, his dad, is like, hey, you have some guests. And Dipper's like, give us the deed to the shack, Gideon, or else. And the guards start to show up, but then the gnomes show up and like impale them in the back of their necks, so they fall forward paralyzed.
Murder.
And yeah, so then they have their gnome army, and Jeff the gnome shouts, let the marriage ceremony begin.
What a great war cry.
And Gideon's like confused and blows the high-pitched whistle and finds out it also affects the gnome's hearing, so they freak out from it. So then he just shouts, or Jeff shouts, we'll do anything we can serve your majesty, the most beautiful girl we've ever seen. And Gideon freaking out, I am not a girl. And Jeff's like, but your skin's so soft. Do you moisturize? Or
This is the second time in this episode people are complimenting how soft someone's skin is. I'm like, what was going on?
Yeah, so then Gideon is able to turn the gnomes against the twins. And while the gnomes are holding the twins back, the journal falls out of Dipper's vest.
Dimensional pocket.
Yeah. And Gideon is excited. He doesn't check what the journal says. He opens it and recognizes the journal. He doesn't look at the cover. So he's like, I got exactly what I want. You kids can get kicked out. I don't care about anything anymore. And broke Dipper's confidence, saying anytime you had anything going for you, it was just the journal. No wonder, you're not a threat to me anymore. Mm-hmm. So they get dragged off, and the scene ends with Gideon having the journal now, and we get more glimpses of Old Man McGucket working on the giant metallic Gideon. I like how they say what it is in the transcript when we don't know what it is yet in the actual episode.
In the transcript, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was reading something on the wiki, and I was just like, wait, what? So, my laundry is about to finish in 2 minutes. So, the question is, do we want to do a quick pause so I can just grab my laundry and then we can continue? Like, we'll just be quiet. And that way I can find it.
Yeah, and then you'll just have to go back a little bit to edit out the question.
No, I'm going to leave it in. I'm going to leave all this in. So, I don't know. If we got 2 minutes, we can get up to the climax of the episode in 2 minutes, maybe.
Okay, so you're keeping all that in. I thought we were being quiet now. Oh, okay.
No. I figured once we get to the next plot point, I can go down. Like the big thing that happens in this episode. Okay, so
biggest
boy.
Yes. So then, with their current plan failing, you see that Dipper and Mabel are getting set up to get picked up by the bus. And Mabel is trying to cheer up Dipper by playing games on the bus. They say they have couch hunt or cushion hunt, and they look at what's underneath the cushions. And for some reason, there's gum with the shape of Ronald Reagan's face on the bottom of the cushion. Mm-hmm. And then Dipper looks around and is like, "Yeah, or giant robot." Or wait, no.
Did we skip? I think we skipped why the robot is coming. So.
No, I said they were getting on the bus.
They suddenly getting on the bus. Yeah, I'm reading through. I'm like, wait a second. I thought it feels like they skip a part in the transcript. Because isn't there, the scene ends with Gideon holding 3 and Old Man McGucket working on the bot. And then... no, they're not on the bus. This is them being dejected.
No, but then it says the next scene starts with Dipper and Mabel boarding a bus looking glum.
Yeah, this is... Oh, I think they're on the bus, and then it's Gideon. They don't... It's pretty much them looking sadly outside as they see Grenda and Candy and Wendy and Uncle Stan.
Yes. I did skip a little bit.
They didn't open up the... They didn't do
cushion games just yet.
Cushion treasure hunt, yeah.
Okay, so then we have Gideon while the kids are boarding the bus, looking at the journals, and he puts down 2, and then he puts down the one he got from Dipper, and he's like, 3? There were 3 journals, and he's like, where's number 1? And he starts losing all his mind about how he needs to have 3 to get everything he wants, and he assumes that Dipper must have been withholding information on the first journal, which is so illogical. But Gideon's like, he must be hiding it from me. I must go get them. They're not allowed to leave Gravity Falls. And Old Man McGucket is outside, and Gideon's like, does it work? And Old Man McGucket's like, only one way to find out. And Gideon hops in, puts on a motion sensor suit, and then the giant metallic thing turns out to be a controllable robot.
Like G Gundam.
Yeah. All right, so is that where you want to...
Yeah, we'll stop there because my timer just went off. So, well, for the listener, you'll just come back in about a second. Welcome back, everyone, to Gravity Falls.
Hope you enjoyed a commercial break, much like it is.
Oh man!
Well, it'll feel like the commercial break watching Gravity Falls on Hulu now.
Yeah. Oh man, if I remember, I'll have to like fade to black and then just fade back up like 2 seconds later.
But yes, so Gideon, now in his giant Gideon bot, as it's called in the transcript, starts wandering around, and McGucket shouts, "I've got a good feeling about that kid."
Most people do.
Everybody in town loves him, no questions asked. But Stan is sitting in the house by him, in Seuss's grandmother's house, and is watching TV, saying that he's hit rock bottom and he's stuck watching infomercials for whatever that is. And on the TV, "Are you sick of piles of owls constantly blocking your driveway? Well, then you gotta get owl trowel."
Me personally, I wouldn't mind a pile of owls. It's like I think owls are cool. Like, I don't know. My favorite Pokemon in a certain generation, I don't know which one, is definitely the owl.
The little one?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Gen 1 owl, whatever.
Noctowl, maybe? Is he
Actually,
Gen
now
1?
I think about it, they got like 2 owls.
I think he's Gen 2.
It's a starter.
There is no owl starter in the first generation.
I didn't say... No, I didn't know.
Oh, okay. There's Noctowl, which is one owl.
Yeah, I like both of them. But
you're thinking of the little one then.
Yeah, the little round lad. Pokemon starters by update. It is Gen 7. Yeah, look at him. I don't even want him to evolve. He's just a ball of happy. I know that's his beak and his schnoz.
Oh, who is also a round owl.
Yeah, that's the other. How many owl Pokemon are there? Owl Pokemon list. There we go. Let's see. Yeah, look at them. They're so cool.
There's another one that looks pretty cool.
All owl Pokemon. Oh, wait. I don't want Sword and Shield. Just all of them.
Yeah, I found a tweet that says there are exactly 6. I'm not sure if the bottom left one is necessarily an owl in my view, but...
Maybe on, like, it's an Evangelion owl. It's one of the angels.
I like the bottom middle. So regal.
Yeah, he's so fancy. But, yeah, I don't know. I like ball owl. But I also, like, the stinking first one. I don't know which one that is, but it looks like it belongs in, that lawyer video game. Objection!
Ace Attorney.
Yeah. He looks like he's about to go and give some sort of court case.
But yes, so Stan is sitting there and he's confused. He's like, the kid is always one step ahead of me. It's almost like he actually is psychic after. And then his hearing aid acts up and he goes, "Wait a minute, I figured it out." And he runs out the door and... Sorry, I am now distracted. They turned the Gen 1 doggos into...
I thought this Gen 2. Yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, Gen 1 is birds. Silly
yes.
me.
Sorry, I'm now looking at owl Pokemon.
It's fully distracted. But yeah, so Stan, excited that he's figured things out, kisses Seuss's grandmother on the lips when she tries to offer him tea, and she goes, "I vacuum my face."
I vacuum my face.
But yeah, so now it's now it's bus seat treasure hunt because I skipped ahead a couple chapters. Essentially, I skipped the whole Gideon chapter and then the Stan chapter, so I essentially skipped chapters. But while they're playing the sad bus cushion treasure hunt, Dipper looks out the window and goes, "Giant robot." And Mabel's like, "Yeah, giant robot. Wait, what are you talking about?" And they look out the window and it's Gideon as a robot running at the bus yelling, "Halt! I command you to halt." And Dipper and Mabel run up to the front to the bus driver and saying, "There's a giant Gideon bot chasing after us." And Seuss goes, "Hey dudes." And they're like, "Seuss?" He's like, "Hey, don't worry. I've been a part-time driver for like 40 minutes. And one of these is probably the clutch." And Seuss does a very good job of bobbing and weaving as a bus driver for only 40 minutes.
The question is he doing it on purpose or is that just how he normally drives?
So then
we don't need to worry about that.
There's 2 roads that it splits off, and he ends up driving up the road closed sign, driving through that, and they go up the mountain, to which the Gideon bot has to like keep jumping up to keep up with them. And eventually they get to the point where Gideon's like, I got you in my sights. And Dipper realizes there's a cliff, and Seuss hits the brakes and does, like, you know, the very, like, epic slide to where the bus is barely, like, stopped before the cliff. And Gideon, catching up now because they're stopped, rips off the roof of the bus. And Seuss is sitting there with the emergency manual. What's the closest thing to this? Is it raccoon in the engine or angry grandparent that won't get off the bus? I think the second one applies in this situation. To which Gideon is shouting about journal number 1 because he jumps down onto the bridge, which I don't know how Dipper and Mabel get down onto that bridge from how steep the cliff looks to where they are. But they're on the bridge, and Gideon is claiming that Dipper is lying to him. And Dipper's like, you took the only journal that I have. What do you even want with these anyway? To which Gideon turns basically into King Kong and grabs each of them by the fists. And Dipper is trying to get out of it. And Gideon's like, you know what? If you don't have the journal... Or no, he says, you still think you're some kind of hero, but once I find the journal, I'll rule the town with Mabel as my queen. And Mabel is screaming for help. And Gideon... Dipper hears the voice of Gideon in his head, you know, talking down to him, saying, you know, he has nothing. But Dipper overcomes it and is like, let go of my sister anyway. And Gideon is like, whatever, and tosses Dipper aside. And Dipper hits his head on a rock. And Dipper is like, you know what? I'm going to do this. And then jumps off amazingly, figuring out the angles and the trajectory. Good for him, because he jumps off of this cliff, flies at this robot, which, you know, realistically could die because of how high up they are. Yeah. Jumps through the window that is the eyeball of the Gideon bot, and him and Gideon are sitting there fighting as poor Mabel is hanging on for her dear life. I was
thinking as well. I'm like, oh my goodness, this child.
Yeah, I was watching to see if Gideon's fist was closed the whole time. Nope. And at one point it's open and you just see Mabel hanging onto the thumb, swinging around in circles.
And she's just like, hey, guys, be careful. Just like, stop it.
Yeah, and then, but essentially they're just fist fighting inside of the robot.
It's his Manitar training coming out.
It is. But it eventually ends up where the bot falls backwards on the bridge, and then as they continue fighting, it falls off the bridge eventually, and Seuss on top in the bus is like, dudes, no, as the robot is falling, and Gideon is still in the robot while Dipper and Mabel are falling outside of it. And then you see the robot fall to the ground and create like a nuclear explosion across town that everyone sees. Yeah. And slowly coming down to a slower fall are Dipper and Mabel, because grappling hook.
Exactly.
And they land safely on the ground, and Dipper compliments her finally about the grappling hook. And Mabel's like, no, but you defeated the robot. And Dipper finds his journal, picks it up off the ground, and brushes it off. And the cops show up and is like, what, is it this thing that exploded? And what's going on? What's that? And Gideon comes out of the Gideon bot, and Gideon immediately goes to the cops. Oh, it was the Pines twins. Even though he's in the robot that exploded. They attacked me and blew up my statue with dynamite. Why is the statue out there? Everybody knows he was being built by the Mystery Shack. But then he asks them to get arrested. And Dipper's like, no, he's lying. And Blubs is like, sorry, we trust Gideon too much to listen to anything else. It would take something like a miracle to change our minds. And Stan shows up in the car, and Blubs is like, not this guy again. As Stan is like, wait, I can break this perfect facade you have. Gideon's been spying on all of you. And Blubs is like, he's more honest than you to Stan. Because Gideon has the phrase, I could never lie, and Stan mocks that. And then Stan goes, how psychic for you, and kicks open the robot to reveal a whole bunch of TV screens in there. And everyone's like, wait, is that me? And it's Lazy Susan pouring coffee, so much coffee, into her omelet. She's like, that's my coffee omelet. And then, sorry, to be determined is at the doctor's, and he's like, it's me. And at the doctor's like, I can verify that birthmark is indeed disgusting.
Hooray.
And everyone's pointing out different images of them, And then everyone looks at Gideon and is rightfully upset because they've been getting spied on through these pins that they have.
Gideon? The NSA? What?
And Gideon is laughing nervously, and Durlin's like, you had our trust. And Manly Dan's like, you lied to us. And Gideon is like, what are you going to do with me? And Durlin looks over at Tyler, and he's like, Tyler? And Tyler, with the saddest look on his face, get him. Get him. So Blubs goes ahead and says that Gideon is arrested for conspiracy, fraud, and breaking our hearts, and asks Durlin to get the tiny handcuffs. And Durlin holds him with his fingers and then gets them on Gideon's tiny wrists. And then Stan is like, one more thing. I believe this belongs to me, and picks up Gideon and shakes him. And a whole bunch of stuff falls out. So like the journal, a whole bunch of random junk, and then the deed. So Stan outwardly just picks up the deed and goes, here you go, guys. This is all I wanted.
Was it?
And then Gideon gets escorted into the back of the vehicle, to which the reporter that to be determined has a crush on interviews Stan. Is like, now that you're the local hero for exposing the fraud that Gideon is, what do you have to say to the town? And all Stan goes is, the Mystery Shack is back, baby. So then they're being very successful. They're selling a whole bunch of merchandise, and Stan is very excited about all of this.
There's one thing before we move forward that I if you did say this, I missed it. But the thing that's just cracks me up is that Stan's just running around in like
his underwear,
his boxers, and like
the tank.
Yeah, I was like, my brain, I'm like, I don't like the name that it seems like a lot of people call it, but it's like,
yeah, that's fair.
The tank top, pretty much. The tank top undershirt.
Yeah. And then after they sell really well at the Mystery Shack, it looks like everyone's settling back into their old rooms. And Mabel is like, one of my favorite moldy spots is still on the ceiling. Even you, Daryl. And it just drips. And Dipper admits to Grunkle Stan that he's had this journal that has all the going-ons in Gravity Falls, and explains, how it's influenced a lot of his summer. And Stan flips through it, and at first he looks serious listening to Dipper, and then he starts laughing, and he's like, of course you have all these crazy ideas in your head. I'm gonna borrow this. Oh man, these can make great attractions. And like very visibly like pretends that he doesn't care about it and thinks that Dipper is silly. And Dipper gets all sad because he's like, no, he took my journal. It's the only thing I had to feel like confident in myself. Mm-hmm. And Mabel's like, what are you talking about? You beat up the Gideon bot without the book or anything anyway. And plus, what does Grunkle Stan want with a boring old book? And then Seuss comes out and starts shooting water guns, so everything feels like home to them. And then as night starts to fall, you see Grunkle Stan do what he did in his memories that Seuss didn't feel like watching, which was opening the vending machine, heading downstairs, and he pulls out from a compartment that he, in fact, has always had journal number 1. And then he got number 2 from Gideon. Now he has 3 from Dipper. He lays them all side by side. It says that he finally has them all, opens them up to the puzzle page that Dipper was looking at earlier, and that I think Gideon was looking at a different point in this episode. Lines them all up into an upside down triangle with a circle surrounding it, and he starts inputting stuff into this machine, pulls the lever, and he's excited that it's working. And you see a large burst of electricity sending beams of light in every direction, and he goes into the next room where white light is emanating from like a hole in this giant machinery, and there's like a steady stream of air pushing against Grunkle Stan. He's like very proud of it with his hands on his hips, and he goes, here we go. And what a good cliffhanger to a first season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just funny because like in the beginning of this series, it like, oh my goodness, Stan knows something, and it's just like, oh my goodness, what's going on? And then it's like the whole first season is him like, yeah, there's this like monster
discounting anything. Yeah,
all this stuff is gobbledygook. What are you talking about? This isn't real. It's just all your imagination. And then he's just like, haha, and then like, it's real.
It's like, oh, well, like we knew he was smart, but he's been this whole time.
Yeah,
he's a good actor.
he's a triple con man.
Yeah. He's conning you and me and himself all at the same time.
I will also admit, for some reason this episode, I was like, is grunkle a real term? And then I was like, wait, grunkle, great uncle? And I'm like, I don't think I've ever had a great uncle. And then I had to I went down.
Backtrack and you're...
Well, I looked up, I'm like, okay, great uncle. Where, is that just something? And I'm like, okay, no, it is the brother or great aunt. That would be the brother or sister of the grandparents. And I'm like, okay. And so I've been clicking through the wiki, and I'm just trying to figure stuff out. I was like, okay, there is a mention of somebody, because there's other stuff that we'll get into next season. But it's just it's one of those things where I'm just I was wondering about it, and it's oh, okay, this is mentioned in an episode. I'll just wait till it then.
But yes, so then we have some character revelations, quite a few. Seuss living with his grandmother. Wow. Yeah, you confused me with Grunkle. My brain just went to the male grandparent. But then I don't know why it's a revelation that Seuss doesn't wear pajamas to bed and only sleeps as an underwear. I don't know why we needed to remember that. I'm very confused that they just now... Okay, I'm skipping that one.
Yeah.
There's a lot of these, and I'm like, oh, I thought this was obvious.
One, what's a fun character revelation? That, oh man, I don't know how to pronounce the grandmother in Spanish.
Abuelita,
thank you. That, her whole house is just filled with different pictures of Seuss from all...
It's very cute.
I'm not hating on it. It's just funny because it's there's the one fact that made me think it was him taking karate as a kid, but there's just multiple pictures of him as a baby, and then
in formal wear. Yep. And yeah. The only other thing that I'll bring up is that in the flashbacks, not the flashbacks, the imagery of Gideon spying on the town, we see that Pacifica Northwest has a dartboard with Mabel's picture on it that she throws darts at.
I didn't even see that.
Yeah, it's I think it's playing as one of the still images when they do the full reveal and the arrest.
It's interesting because there's so many of these characters, and I'm just scanning through it, and I'm like, okay, they have such a bigger role in season 2. Pacifica, she's
pretty important in season 2.
Yeah. I don't know. I really like the episode. I don't remember what number it is, but I like the episode that is kind of around her. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of really, and it's just funny because you look at season 1, and season 1's just you're not sure how much time passes between each episode except for the last 2. Mm-hmm. While in season 2, it's very much I think that literally happened a day or 2 ago.
It's very closely connected, yeah. But yeah, so then for series continuity, yes, we already said this is a direct continuation of the previous episode. Mabel's got her grappling hook that she's been trying to force on everybody for a couple episodes. Robbie's trying to get Wendy back after they broke up. Yeah. Gideon throws a picture at the lake. Throws away the picture taken at the lake with Stan, Mabel, and Dipper in the I think that's the second episode, right? When they all went fishing together.
Walker, yeah. Hop's favorite painting shows up, which you mentioned.
I don't recognize this. A drawing of the tree from Tourist Trapped, where Dipper found the device that revealed 3, is shown on a page from Journal 2 titled Possible Hiding Places. I'm not making the connection on that right now.
Why isn't Tourist man, this is one of the things that kind of annoys me is where it's if we mention
not
something,
linked.
It's well, it's a little bit early. Oh, Tourist Trapped is the first episode. Okay. So
okay, that's why we don't remember. It's been a couple weeks.
It's been at least 20 weeks.
Plus 2 because we took
yeah.
We had some busy weekends.
Mm-hmm. And there's gonna be some more coming up. But anyway, yeah.
So, yeah, the gnomes make a reappearance. Tats makes a reappearance.
The
water tower. Yeah, the Grimoblin.
I wish they stopped mentioning the water tower.
The water tower. It's not that important.
It's I'll be honest, didn't even see it. Like, I know
Oh, this one I didn't catch. Blendon Blandon can be seen right before Stan comes out of his car to prove to the townsfolk that Gideon is a fraud.
I didn't realize that either.
Yeah.
Finally, one that's good.
Then they finish rebuilding the top of the Mystery Shack, but the S falls down again, so it still says Mystery Hack with the S in the ground and the goat chewing on it.
AKA, they didn't want to fix the cells. So they're just like, just keep it. They probably didn't use cells. But anyway.
Stan finally reveals, what's behind the vending machine. And apparently the passcode to enter Stan's lab is the same as the symbols on the first page of Book 3, first shown in Tourist Trapped. Would have never caught that one either.
Yeah. It's a
jam-packed episode.
Mm-hmm. There's also something where it's just like, you just sit there and you're like, oh man, I know that. I know why that thing, because there's like a thing that is just randomly glowing red in the little like underground shelter, and it's just like, I remember why that's what happens with that. Cryptograms. So apparently the cryptogram on the squash with the human face and emotions says don't eat him. There's apparently a bunch of these that are all over the place. Right after Dipper, Mabel, and Seuss run out of the room, doesn't say which room, carved on a pipe under the floorboards, it decoded, it says Bill is watching. The left-hand corner of Journal 3's page has a whole bunch of wobbly stuff, and it says, hold on, I'm reading that. I was like, whatever, we're already spoiling stuff. It says, the portal, when completed, will open a gateway to infinite new worlds and herald a new era of mankind's understanding of the universe. Plus, it will probably get girls start talking to me finally. And then apparently...
the end credits show a bunch of like journal-esque pages, and it's kind of like just zooming over or panning over them slowly. Mm-hmm. And then, you can go ahead and say what those decode to.
Oh, I clicked the wrong way. Yeah, so one is reverse the ciphers, and then the last one is search for the blind eye, which we'll kind of get into in a second. Interesting.
1 second? Or during the next season?
Oh, that's what I meant. But, oops.
So,
I closed something. I don't know what I just closed. Oh, I closed.
That's okay. We
closed
finished
Spotify. No, I closed a tab that had nothing to do with.
Unrelated.
Yeah, and I'm like, I kind of need that. Where did it go?
So then I think we covered most everything for the episode. So are you ready for the question? The question we always end each episode with?
Yeah. There's one thing that I'm just going to find really funny, because this is the end of season 1 and everyone's going to be like, oh, wow, they went extra long to go into this, and half, like a third or a half of the episode is us going to be talking about books. So, Hop, who's your favorite character?
I would say Abuelita.
Yeah, write it twice.
I'll go vacuum my face now.
It's like
she's so sweet and so innocent. Yeah.
It's like I vacuum walls now.
As far as who I am, most like, I am not her. I don't vacuum as much as I should, especially not my walls.
What?
So out of everybody, we have Grunkle Stan, who kind of is defeated until he has a revelation. You have Dipper, who is also defeated and has a revelation, but Stan's is a kind of I've given up attitude, and Dipper's is a kind of like coming of age attitude, where he's like, oh, I don't need to rely on this book anymore. Mabel is trying to be positive through everything, even though she's clearly sad about it. Mm-hmm. Seuss is filling in the void.
That's not, like, unless the episode's about him, he's just there, like.
But I mean, he's filling in his void of like, I can't work at the Mystery Shack. I'm gonna be so busy that I can't be upset that the twins are leaving and the mystery shack is shut down. Gideon is just evil. Gideon's dad is complacent in whatever Gideon wants.
He's Gideon's dad, Bud, is the person who's like, I was just following orders, which is not a good argument if you look at history. It is a terrible argument.
That is a particular phrase.
Yeah, I know. That's why I said it.
Then you have Old Man McGucket, who was just hired to do a job and he doesn't care about
he's
the
having the
outcome
time
of
of his
anything.
life.
Yeah, he's just happy to be doing what he loves.
Yeah, who would have thought that they would have let him build another robot?
Wendy is annoyed. Robbie is annoying.
Lazy Susan is there.
You have the deputy and the sheriff that have their worlds destroyed. Well, I guess the rest of the town basically has their beliefs destroyed. I don't know.
Jeff is living his best life as well.
Yeah. He's very comfortable in his squirrel stuff. You have the squirrels. What was the name of the one that he was like, take 5? The one that he was using to scrub?
I think it was Steve?
If I had to go with anybody, I guess I would be Mabel. Because of the whole, like, just trying to keep everybody else happier during a stressful situation. Like, she's not necessarily the problem solver or the one in charge, but she's just like, hey guys, like, it's look on the bright side kind of thing. As opposed to, like, I don't feel like I've had a big, like, aha moment that Dipper and Grunkle Stan have had. So I think my safe bet is just Mabel, where she's trying to be positive enough and put on the brave face for everybody else to, like, be less upset. Grappling hook. Who would you say you're most like this episode?
Chris is the name of the squirrel. I was like, that's what I was listening. I'm like, I'm gonna find the name of this stupid squirrel. It's a bummer that squirrel's the only one that gets
named.
The free pass.
Oh yes.
I want to be Gideon Robot because I always want to be a robot. They look cool. But that's not who. I don't want to be piloted by a little freakazoid. The other thing I thought was interesting, hold on, I'm looking at the picture. This is, side note before I do the same thing that I should have been doing while you were going through all the different characters, is that Dipper does a left hook to Gideon when he knocks it all out.
Very reminiscent of Grunkle Stan and saving the woman with the purse. Left hook!
Yep. He didn't like yell it out like a Dragon Ball Z character. Yeah, this is tough because it's like...
It's very, like, growth-oriented kind of stuff.
Yeah, and as everyone knows, I refuse to do that.
No change.
No change. I'm going to be the same as I was forever, unless... I can't think of anything else. Yeah, because it's like... It is interesting to think of it like, because like the way that Stan, Dipper, and Mabel, like, they're essentially the main characters that are just like the main focuses of this episode, and it's just like, how do you deal with like this like terrible news, like something that will like potentially alter like your whole life pretty much. And it's like Mabel, as you said, still trying to find the bright side. Dipper is just like stuck in self-doubt, and Stan's just like, for like the first time it feels like, even though it's like, this is one thing that it's like kind of annoys me a little bit about cartoons where people are like, oh, they're such a terrible thing. Like, it's the kind of the argument of like, Goku's a terrible dad. Is like, you only see Goku for like a month out of like
before he goes on
years.
Before he goes to train. Yeah,
like, it's like, if there's like years that you don't see that he's like raising Gohan. He died before Goten was a thing, and it's just like, I don't know. It's one of those things that always like annoys me, because everyone's like, Piccolo is the real dad, and it's like, Piccolo's the teacher for them.
It's, yeah, in Dragon Ball, it's time isn't necessarily the most linear. Yeah. Like, just because the episodes seem to follow back to back, it's like, We don't know how much time.
Yeah, but this is a completely different argument that is like, I don't even like Dragon Ball Z that much, but it's just like, it's one of those things like, Goku's a terrible dad, and it's like, there's literal lines in Dragon Ball Z where Gohan's reminiscing of these like big fun times they had with Goku, of like how Goku would pretend to be a superhero, and he's like, how did he do that? He was so good. Why can't I do that? And it's just like, anyway. How did I even get there? Oh yeah, now I remember, because like Stan, like for this whole episode, is very like, heck with kids, okay, Mabel, you're cool, but heck with Dipper. And then it's like in the last episode, he's like, no, I care for them both differently, but it's like,
yeah, I wish they didn't have to leave.
Yeah, and he's like, and especially in this episode, he's like, I don't want them to go, but it's like,
it's the better choice for them.
Well, he's like, it's the responsible choice, and it's just like, it's interesting looking at his whole life, which we'll dig into more in season 2, where it's just like, there is a lot of times where he doesn't make the responsible choice, and in this one he's like, no, like, I'm, as much as I would want them to stay, like, I literally can't. And so it's I don't know, it's an interesting like I don't think it's much of a growth thing, but it's like, for us, it's like learning about Grunkle Stan, that he's not just... It
adds another dimension to his character.
Because I feel like as we move forward, like, even like as we learn more about him, like the whole thing about... Oh, I saw that we're getting close to the time that you needed to end.
It's not a harsh deadline. It was just a...
shoot for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like his whole thing was like, it kind of comes clear of like, he's not being like, especially in this last thing, is like, where he's just like, Dipper's just like, yeah, Dipper, you know what you're talking about, like, you're going crazy, whatever, and it's just like, it's form of like kind of trying to protect him from going down like into some of the paths that we'll learn in season 2. So with all that to say, Gideon. No. I don't know. It feels like I don't really connect with really anybody in this.
Yeah, that's why I was like, if anything, I think I can see myself acting like the way Mabel did. Because I've done that for some people where the situation's tough. Instead of me trying to be like, this is how we should do things, it was just me more being like a listener and being like, well, what if we do something to distract ourselves a little bit, or do something, you know?
Yeah. So, and that's like in the... You know what? I think I do have to say Gideon now I'm thinking about it. Not so much the reason why. Like, he becomes madly obsessed, but it's just like, which I don't normally think I'm going to destroy a whole town for my goals. But it's just like that manic focus on something and just can't focus on anything else but this one goal, or one thing. And now, like, as I'm sitting there thinking about it, I'm like, I'm pretty sure Hop has heard me go on about one specific thing and I'm like, I need to figure this out. I know other people have. So
I wrote it in. It's official.
Yeah. No, I'm okay with it. It's just yeah, if I have to be honest, I'm like, you know what? Like, it's, and like his plans are like so far out there and crazy. It's just like but his like sole focus to where he gets delusional. I know I get delusional, but not to the fact I'm going to spy on a whole town and get their secrets and think I'm a psychic. But it's just like, it feels like it's just one of those things where I'm like, you know what? I can see myself and I know myself where I would get like so focused on something that I don't really think or see beyond the scope of what I'm doing. And I think
that's fair.
I think that's what happens to Gideon, because it's just like,
he just jumps to the conclusion, Dipper must have it. Dipper has the answers. Dipper had the third one, versus just stopping and going, okay, where do I find the first one?
Yeah. I hope that I am not as impulsive as a 10-year-old kid or whatever old he is. I also haven't... I was like, wait, have I been in jail? I'm like...
You had to pause and think.
I'm like, wait a second. I know it was joke put into jail, but yeah. The other thing that I thought was funny, mainly because we're talking about vacuums with Abilita, is when Gideon finally gets to Journal 3 and he's like tells Bud and his mom to get out of the room. It's like she's still vacuuming. I'm pretty sure that vacuum wasn't plugged in because she runs out. Like there's, it's just
no thought.
The cable's just like dragging behind him.
No, it's a nervous habit at this point. She's not cleaning. She's just pushing it around for comfort.
So, but that's the end of season 1. And if people listened to when we talked for Better Off Ted, no, we are going to continue to season 2 right away. I was thinking about it a little while. I was like, I wonder if we're ever going to do season 2.
It was a filler for us between plans, but we'll see if we need another filler. But in any case,
I think we came up with a bunch of other fillers.
Yes. Thank you everyone for listening this much and this far. We always appreciate it. We would also really appreciate it. It also helps us out for getting the podcast out to more eyes. If you leave ratings, reviews, comments, likes, subscribe to the YouTube, things like that. Very helpful, very kind, and also sharing it with other people. If you guys enjoyed the pre-show band, let us know, because we can we just have to hit record earlier and not talk as long. So yeah, if you guys enjoyed that, I know I did. Yeah, it's always fun. Yeah, let us know if you'd like to hear that kind of content, and also let us know if you'd like more bookish content.
It might happen either way. So yeah, thanks everybody, and next week there won't be you won't have to wait long for season 2. You just gotta wait a week. So until next time, talk to you all later. Bye bye.